Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I don't know about the rest of you, but the minute I heard Britt Westbourne was coming back with the promise of a hot summer romance, I leaned forward in my chair. Folks, that's the kind of news that gets my attention. Around Port Charles, happiness never comes easy. And Britt has paid a heavy price for just about every choice she's ever made. That's exactly why I can't help rooting for her. After everything she's been through, I'd sure like to see life throw her a bone for once instead of another heartbreak. The more I look at these latest spoilers, the more I think Britt's return isn't going to be some simple homecoming. No, sir, this feels like one of those emotional roller coasters General Hospital loves to put its characters through. She's walking back into a town filled with old memories, old mistakes, and people who still have plenty of questions. If you ask me, that alone is enough to make anyone nervous, and Britt has more baggage than most. Sometimes the hardest part isn't coming home, it's facing the people who never stopped waiting for answers. One thing that really caught my eye is the trouble brewing with Liesl Obrecht. As a parent, Liesl has always had her own unusual way of showing love, but one thing has never changed. She hates being kept in the dark. I can already imagine how disappointed she'll feel after learning Britt has been hiding so much from her. Family secrets have a funny way of exploding at the worst possible moment, don't they? I've seen enough in life to know that the truth eventually catches up with everyone, whether they're ready for it or not. Britt may have believed she was protecting her mother, but sometimes the silence hurts even more than the confession. Then there's the legal trouble waiting around the corner, and I have a feeling that's going to make Britt's fresh start even more difficult. Every time she seems ready to turn the page, another chapter from her past comes flying back. That's something I actually appreciate about her character. She's never been perfect, and she doesn't pretend to be. She stumbles, she makes questionable decisions, and she pays for them. In my book, that makes her far more relatable than someone who always lands on their feet. Now, here's the piece of good news that made me smile. The possibility that Britt may not have Huntington's disease could completely change her outlook on life. I'll tell you, carrying around the fear of a devastating illness would weigh on anybody's heart. If that burden is finally lifted, I can understand why Britt might start believing she deserves happiness again. Sometimes hope arrives quietly, and before you know it, it changes everything. That's exactly the kind of emotional turning point this character has needed for a long time. Of course, I know plenty of fans are excited about Jason Morgan returning as well, but I wouldn't get too comfortable if I were hoping for a fairy tale reunion. Everything I'm seeing points toward these two drifting apart instead of finding their way back together. Honestly, that doesn't surprise me one bit. People don't come back from traumatic experiences unchanged, and Jason has been through more than enough while being held by the WSB. Experiences like that leave scars you can't always see. Even when two people love each other, life has a way of putting invisible walls between them. Strangely enough, I don't think the end of Jason and Britt automatically means disappointment. Sometimes one chapter has to close before a better one begins. That's what makes this summer storyline so interesting to me. Britt isn't just returning to face her past. She may finally be standing at the beginning of a future she never thought she could have. And if General Hospital plays its cards right, I think viewers are going to witness a completely different side of Britt Westbourne, one that's finally ready to stop surviving and start living. The biggest surprise for me has to be the arrival of Tristan Roberts. Every summer, General Hospital introduces someone new, but not every newcomer immediately catches my attention. Tristan is different. The moment I read that he'd be sharing scenes with Britt, I started wondering if the writers were quietly preparing us for the next great romance in Port Charles. I've watched this show for enough years to recognize the signs, and when a fresh character enters the canvas at the exact moment another character's love life is falling apart, that's usually no coincidence. It feels carefully planned, almost like the writers are saying, don't look backward, look ahead. What really makes me smile is that Britt and Tristan aren't expected to hit it off right away. In fact, everything points to them clashing from the very beginning. Now, if you've been watching soap operas as long as I have, you'll probably chuckle the same way I did when I read that spoiler. Around Port Charles, arguing is sometimes the first chapter of a love story. As we say here in America, the sparks have to fly before the fire starts. I've seen couples begin with resentment, misunderstandings, and endless bickering, only to become the relationships fans remember for decades. Sometimes people discover each other through conflict, because that's when their true personalities come out. I actually think this approach fits Britt perfectly. She has never been the kind of woman who falls head over heels after one charming smile. Britt has always been smart, independent, sarcastic, and more than capable of standing up for herself. That's one of the reasons I've always enjoyed watching her. She doesn't make life easy for the people around her, and honestly, they shouldn't expect her to. After everything she's survived, she's earned the right to be cautious. If Tristan walks into her life thinking he'll impress her with smooth talk alone, I have a feeling he'll learn very quickly that Britt isn't interested in empty words. She's going to challenge him every step of the way, and I suspect he'll do exactly the same to her. That kind of relationship sounds much more exciting than another predictable romance. Instead of watching two people instantly fall in love, we'll get to watch trust develop one step at a time. Those little moments often become my favorites. One week they're arguing over every decision, the next they're reluctantly helping each other, and before long they're protecting one another without even realizing how much they care. That's the slow burn that keeps me invested. It feels more natural because real feelings usually don't appear overnight. They grow through shared experiences, disagreements, forgiveness, and eventually respect. Another thing I find refreshing is that Tristan arrives as a mystery. We don't know everything about him yet, and I actually hope the writers keep it that way for a while. Some of the most memorable characters on General Hospital didn't reveal every secret during their first week on screen. Little by little, viewers uncovered who they really were, and that made every episode worth watching. I'm hoping Tristan has layers beneath the surface because Britt deserves someone who is just as complicated as she is. Two imperfect people trying to figure each other out can make for much stronger storytelling than one perfect hero riding in to save the day. The comparison to Ethan Lovett and Ava Jerome also makes a lot of sense to me. At first, their conversations sounded like playful insults tossed back and forth across a room. But the more they interacted, the more obvious it became that there was genuine chemistry hiding underneath all that sarcasm. Their teasing slowly transformed into flirtation without either of them admitting it. That's exactly the kind of progression I'd love to see between Britt and Tristan. Those little smiles that appear after an argument, those moments when one secretly worries about the other's safety, those unexpected acts of kindness after pretending not to care, those are the scenes that usually stay with me long after the credits roll. What excites me even more is what this romance could mean for Britt emotionally. For so many years, her stories have centered around loss, guilt, illness, betrayal, and constantly looking over her shoulder. Every time she seemed close to happiness, something terrible happened to pull her back down again. Watching someone live in survival mode for that long can become exhausting, even for loyal viewers. That's why I believe this new relationship shouldn't simply be about romance. It should be about healing. Britt deserves someone who reminds her that life isn't only about paying for yesterday's mistakes. Sometimes it's about believing tomorrow can actually be better. At the end of the day, I honestly think Tristan's arrival could become one of the most important storylines of the summer. Sure, they'll probably frustrate each other, exchange plenty of sharp remarks, and drive one another absolutely crazy before anything romantic happens. But strangely enough, that's exactly why I'm looking forward to it. Those relationships usually have the strongest foundation because they're built on honesty instead of fantasy. If the writers give Britt and Tristan the time they need to grow naturally without rushing every emotional moment, I believe viewers could be witnessing the beginning of a romance that lasts far longer than just one summer. And speaking only for myself, I'd be more than happy to watch that journey unfold one episode at a time.